Hi, my name is Evan Thornberry. I'm the one from UBC in Vancouver. I'm the GIS librarian there. Stephen Appel from University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee is going to take the second half of our presentation on OpenIndexMaps. I'm going to start us off just by providing some context and some descriptions of some of the issues that we're hoping OpenIndexMaps is going to help resolve. And I'm thankful for Emma. Excuse me. I'm thankful for Emma going ahead of us to provide some context on our roles as librarians. In my role at UBC Library, I have a chunk of responsibilities that are to provide the services and resources to support teaching, learning, and research with cartographic material and geographic geospatial information and technology. And so you can use that sort of as a framework for the sort of work that we're doing with OpenIndexMaps. Right, so Stephen and I both work in pretty large and relatively active map collections, paper map collections. Between the two of us, we oversee 850,000 maps. It's a lot of maps. These are paper maps printed in drawers in our collections with a large footprint in libraries. In both cases, our libraries have significantly fewer catalog records than actual sheets of maps in drawers. And so, in other words, one can't fully rely on our library catalogs to search and find everything in drawers. There isn't a one-to-one relationship for that. And this situation really isn't that uncommon. But it does create some problems for discoverability and browsability if one isn't located within the physical map collection itself. One of the main reasons for this difference, and there are a lot of reasons, this is a main reason, especially at my collection, and at University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, is that we've traditionally assigned one record for a set of maps. And this is similar to the way that we describe things like book volumes or journals. And for the remainder of this presentation, we're really going to focus on these map sets, as opposed to map monographs, monographic maps, which would typically have one record assigned to an individual map. Map sets, they could include things like topographic maps from the USGS, or the Canadian Topographic Survey, hydrographic charts from the Canadian Hydrographic Service, atlas plates from a fire insurance atlas, or even you can think of air photo sets, a flight of air photos as sort of like a map set. We would assign one record so somebody searching our library catalog could find that set of things. These sets are usually tied together by their spatial index, which sort of acts as like a spatial table of content. That allows users to find the right map sheet or atlas plate or air photo for a particular place. And this is, in my experience, reflective of how a lot of people search for maps by a location or a place. And it works a little bit better than a text-based, a traditional text-based library catalog that we're all used to when searching for map content. So here are a few examples of indexes. This is the nautical charts, very irregular shapes, sometimes overlapping different scales. This is a flight index, a flight line index for a set of air photos. We have a very regular rectangular grid for topo sets, and of course a Bromley real estate atlas for Manhattan, which sort of aligns with the street layout. So let's see, I want to make sure I'm on the right slide here. Okay, so the arrangement of sheets in a physical map collection itself is conducive to discoverability, where indexes are typically found accompanying map sets, and sheets contained within the same drawers, often with the whole set in the same drawer or close by one another, and adjacent sheets, a sheet next to the sheet that one is looking for might be found in this, next by, or next to, or very nearby in that stack of maps. So in a way that physical map collection is still sometimes the best way to discover this sort of material. Here at UBC, well not here, at UBC, we tape sometimes a hand-drawn, sometimes even index to the folders of maps, or the folders containing the map sets. And it's situated right next to the index, the title, the scale, the call number, and other things that arguably are also, some of the most important things to describe what a map set really is and what it contains. But in library catalogs, where people actually search for content, we don't really do a good job of supporting sheet-level discoverability in map sets. For example, at UBC, I'm just going to show you an example here. This is a really, I'm calling my library out on doing this, but this is our one single catalog record for our set of nautical charts for Canada, and we basically just provide a wall of text for all of those things in that map set, and this is really pretty meaningless to even me. These numbers represent a sheet or a range of sheets, and it's very useless for people who are looking for a place. I want a sheet showing this place, and this is not very helpful for that. Same thing here is an example at University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee, for a set of military topo sheets for Cuba, 100 years old. Same thing, a list of holdings with these sort of like arbitrary number, like alphanumeric number or IDs really for sheets. So not super helpful for the vast majority of users. And moreover, when sheets are scanned for map sets, they're often inadequately linked to sheets of a familiar or of a similar geographic area. The adjacent sheet for an image of a map that you're looking at online is sort of like thought of as this like disparate web page that is completely separate from all the rest of the sheets in the set. Another example from UBC. So this is a sheet from a map set. It's a land use map set, just showing Vancouver in the 1960s. And this, if it loads, well, it's supposed to show one sheet, and it's right by where I live. And for me to actually access the sheet above it, it would require me to kind of like start my search over. There isn't like built into the interface any way for me to just sort of like navigate from one to the next very easily. Here, I'm gonna just close UBC's examples here, and maybe we'll go to Cuban military map. So like the purpose of a map, one of the big utilities of having map sets is that we can map large areas at a scale small enough to show adequate detail, and we can print the result on paper that wasn't the size of this building or the size of the city. So thinking about that, you really need to be very familiar with the geographic area that you're looking at. If you stumbled upon this map and wanted to know, like, where are you? How do you situate yourself? Where's the geographic context? I need some reference points. You're really unable to do that digitally without some help. And this, I'm not super used to University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee's interface here for digital maps, but it looks like you might be able to even scroll over, although it's not clear whether or not it gets me to the map to the right of this sheet or what. I think it just kind of like scrolls through sort of like a carousel of different images. So I'm going to leave it there. Stephen, I'm going to sit down and get out of your way and take it away.
And let's see here. So to address these problems, we've been working with a group of people, mostly librarians, to develop a collaborative, community-developed, open digital index map. And so community-based standard, that means that this is map librarians and other library professionals that are working together to develop something that works for us so that we're all speaking sort of a common language and using a common file format and common schema to share this information. It came out of the GeoBlacklight community, which is a platform for discoverability of GIS data, and the related Geo for LibCamp unconference, which is sort of the annual conference of the GeoBlacklight community. We wanted to use an open format, so we landed on the GeoJSON format. That anybody that works in JavaScript is familiar with that sort of data format. It's object-oriented. And what this allows us to do is keep these files simple and small, text-based, and host them on a platform like GitHub. So just a quick example here, in a simple GeoJSON viewer, that it turns these sort of index maps into these more interactive, user-friendly interfaces where people can really interact with a series in a more meaningful way and find that adjacent sheet information a lot more easily and access things like links to digital collections. So this is building on quite a bit of work in map libraries. all the way back, as far as I know, Chris Baruth at my institution, the AGSL, our former curator, in the 1980s developed a command line software called Geodex for rapid cataloging of large map sets. If you want to learn more about that, my 2018 NACIS talk talked quite a bit about Geodex. Penn State in 2004, some librarians were writing about how they were scanning index maps and putting them online to aid online patrons in finding their maps. A big advancement, Chris Theory from the Colorado School of Mines started using ArcGIS Online to create and share these sort of digitized index maps in shapefile format. And then really the birth of this project was Tom Brittnacher at UCSB, who led a session at Geo4LibCamp in 2017 to start thinking about what would an open index map format look like. And then throughout the pandemic, we met on Zoom and we released our first sort of official schema in 2021 in April. And since then, we've been sort of testing. It's basic information that you would expect to have. You have things like a label, what's going to appear to the user as a label on the web map, things like date of publication, and then spatial information like the westernmost, easternmost, northernmost, and southernmost longitude. And this is just a sample of the full schema, which is available on OpenIndexMaps.org, as sort of recommendations on how to implement this. There's very few, I don't think there's any required elements, but there are a lot of recommended elements in order to make it as interoperable as possible. In GeoJSON format, like I mentioned, it's object-oriented, so you have this sort of element value pair that matches up to that schema. And so you can see here that each sheet in this series is a feature in the GeoJSON. You have text-based coordinates that define the geometry. You have things, simple strings like a label. You have arrays like locations, so if there's a list of locations on the map, we can list them here to improve that searchability. And then things for like digital holdings, so we can link to our digital collections for that specific sheet in the record. Practically using OpenIndexMaps, we do have a shapefile converter on the website, so a lot of folks are creating these things in ArcGIS and making a shapefile and then using that to convert to GeoJSON. Like I mentioned, we're sharing on GitHub. There's an organization for OpenIndexMaps, and each institution sort of has its own repo in that organization where we can all kind of view each other's OpenIndexMaps. And then the GeoBlacklight community is developing implementations so that OpenIndexMaps can be shared on GeoBlacklight portals. So for the end users, there's kind of two groups. There's the library patrons, which can now, once we put these in sort of public-facing spaces, they can use them to more easily navigate these large map sets instead of trying to decipher those catalog records that Evan was showing. And then library staff can use these to share information between institutions and even within our own collections to see what do we have, what don't we have, in an interoperable way that sort of speaks the same language. And then finally, we can use them in things like web applications. So this is an example here of a web application at the AGSL showing our antique nautical charts. And we basically implemented this schema, even though it's not in GeoJSON, it's actually on an ArcGIS server, but we copied the schema to sort of keep things interoperable. Evan, if you don't mind, I'm going to skip over these examples because we've got 1 minute. So if you want to get involved at your library, there is a tutorial that was put together by Keith Jenkins at Cornell on the OpenIndexMaps website. Geo4LibCamp, like I mentioned, is the annual meeting. I think it's being organized right now, so keep an eye out for that. There'll definitely be a meeting about OpenIndexMaps there. Most of the discussion happens on Slack. The GeoBlacklight Slack, there is an OpenIndexMaps channel. And right now, everybody that's involved is sort of in the testing phase. We're all going out, trying it out, putting it in our web applications, and that kind of stuff. So our time is up. So I'll leave it there. Thank you very much.